Back in February, I made a video ranking every world champion from the 21st century. Fair to say that video was well received, and the initial plan I had was to rank the champions from every single century. Okay, cool, let's check out the 20th century champions, and uh-oh, that's everyone else in F1 history. Americans, am I right? Can't tell the difference between a decade and a century. So then I thought, okay, why don't I go by decades? The only issue with that is how I really don't want to make the same video like 5 more times, so you know what? Screw it. Here's everyone else at once. Now, where in the first video we had 9 champions to discuss, this video naturally has more, specifically 26 to discuss, nearly 3 times the amount. So unfortunately, as to not waste your and my time, I will keep the champions overview relatively brief so we don't sit here for like 2 hours. So again, let's whip out the old tier list from the previous video and add onto it every other world champion. And reminder, just because a champion is ranked low like a C tier world champion does not mean they are a C tier overall driver, just a C tier champion compared to other champions. So put down the keyboard, Lando fans. Subscribe if you're new to avoid getting kidnapped, and let's get to quacking now.
See those clouds up in the corner? That's where the rain is coming from.
Before we start yapping though, here was the tier list from the previous video. The GOAT tier is full of, well, GOAT drivers, so only 2, which by the way, will not change. The S tier is for champions who will be remembered for centuries thanks to their amazing drives. The A tier is for champions who were really great and still F1 legends, just not as legendary as the tiers above. B tier are for champions who drove a great season, but never had the success replicate or be exceeded. And finally, the C tier are for champions who drove good, but also had some help through other factors. Again, not a bad season, just not as good as the others. We good? Cool. Let's go chronologically, beginning with the 1950s. The first F1 season in 1950, of course, would feature the first ever F1 world champion, and who would it be? Giuseppe Farina driving for Alfa Romeo. Now, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you guys. We can keep this real short. Farina was not a rookie driver. He had been a motorsport driver far before 1950, even killed 2 people. So he was not a scrub. He knew how to drive a motor racing vehicle, leading to his F1 title in 1950. But he was not the best driver that year. That went to someone else who we will discuss very shortly, but Farina did have his mistake here and there and even finished outside of the points in the penultimate round, which by the way, was round 6. Yet Farina still won the title due to having better reliability and actually competing in every single race. After 1950, Farina would never win the title again and kinda never got close too. So despite being F1's first ever champion, he was just fine. Like, he wasn't bad, he was just there. I'd say a C tier is in order. Now for someone worth speaking about, F1's first go, Juan Manuel Fangio. Fangio was straight business. He was a true best driver in 1950 since he won every single race he finished. Of course, finished, but still impressive. And then in 1951, reliability and lopsided performance, was on his side, leading to a dominant season. And while 52 and 53 would not feature more titles, from 1954 to 57, Fangio would win 4 back-to-back for a total of 5 titles, a record that will be uncontested until Michael Schumacher in 2002. And judging by reports, since I'm not watching an F1 race before the 70s, you kidding me? Fangio's titles were backed up by his talent. Not only did this guy win with 4 different teams, even racing for 2 teams in 1954, but his driving was out of this world back then. His best race decided to be the 1957 German Grand Prix, where he made up a 20+ second deficit in 10 laps on the Nürburgring, mind you, to win the race. And yeah, how could I not say he's goated? Well, there is something that does hold him back in my opinion. I don't doubt Fangio was amazing, but the rest of the grid, woo boy. Yeah, great driver, sure, but plenty of people there were nepo babies and ultra wealthy people who had no talent to say the least. This does not discredit Fangio's driving though. Just because he won against princes and plumbers does not mean those wins still weren't crazy. Fangio will always be remembered as F1's first greatest of all time, and only because competition back then was so hard to judge, I'd say an S tier is at least in order. However, Fangio was not racing in 1952, and because of that, Ascari was allowed free reign to become the 1952 world champion. And even when Fangio came back in 1953, Ascari still won the title for a total of 2 championships. The first champion for Ferrari was able to stand toe-to-toe with Fangio and come out on top. Well shit, how good was he? Pretty damn good. He was fast, he was brilliant, and more importantly, consistent. In 1952, he won every single round he finished, and in 1953, he was able to largely do the same. Keep in mind, those 2 seasons of F1 were actually run under F2 rules to close the competition, and while reliability was still bad, leading to lopsided performance, Ascari still had the balls to win and beat others. A tier from me. Taking a big jump to 1958, we arrive at Mike Hawthorne's only title victory. Hawthorne was a very fast and clinical driver for many years before 1958, and in F1, he was always in the top 5 or top 3, wishing he could be in the top 1. 1958 was finally the opportunity though, where he basically second placed his way to victory by just being consistent while others crashed or blew up. That's about it. It's the 50s, man. I don't know what you want me to say. I never seen her race, but judging by reports and records, Hawthorne seemed good. Like, I just can't sit here in good faith and say he was some trash pay driver with no value. He seemed good, so I'm gonna take their word. I'm inclined to believe a C tier is fitting. Finally, in the 50s, Jack Brabham, the first Australian champion in F1, is legendary for such daring driving and also being a smart cookie. Fun fact, in 1966, Brabham took his third title driving for his own team, which by the way, pioneered rear-engine cars, which is very much present today. All 3 of his titles were won in dominant fashion. Even in the years he didn't win, he always shined as one of the greatest on the grid until his retirement in 1970. I'd say that lovely A tier is reserved for him. Now for the champions beginning in the 60s, and we have first up, Phil Hill. Who? I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Absolutely nothing was found regarding the guy. Every report and record just says he was good and decent. Yeah, also the first American world champion for Ferrari, and yeah, I got nothing for you. His record before and after 1961 was just fine, so I don't know, C tier? Graham Hill. I mean, at minimum, he is an A tier for many reasons. Graham was such a natural talent in any car. Of course, Formula 1 did not deviate from this, and we saw some brilliant drives from him. He is also the only driver to have won the Triple Crown of Motorsports with his Indy 500, Monaco GP, and 24-hour Le Mans wins. He was fast, he was brilliant, he was unstoppable. Only having 2 titles does not hold him back in my opinion, along with the grid still not being super competitive, but regardless, high A tier for Graham. But somehow he has exceeded, since next up is Jim Clark. Jim Clark is such a what could have been driver. Had he not passed away in 1968, who knows how stacked his career could have been. But we say that while he already has 2 titles in 63 and 65, along with too many wins at the time. He's basically Graham Hill, but better, and the rivalry those two could have had would have been better than Senna and Prost, dare I say. S tier for Jim Clark. Now for an interesting driver, John Surtees. Now, if this was a general driver ranking, Surtees is in at least S tier. The guy is a 7-time champion in motorcycles across many classes, like, that is ironically class. However, speaking F1, he was still great, but not on those levels. Something Surtees was brilliant in was feedback. He was one smart cookie and loved by teams for his detailed feedback on how to better the car, which of course resulted in a brilliant 1964 title win from him. He wasn't as good on 4 wheels, but if he was a 10 out of 10 on 2 wheels, he was at lowest like an A.5 on 4 wheels. Perhaps I'm underselling him here, but B tier is what my heart says. Denny Hulme is the next champion to discuss, and I don't know, man. He kind of falls into the Phil Hill and Farina dilemma where good driver, sure, but like this super memorable world champion? Not really. He was really good at driving, don't get me wrong, but was never able to replicate his 1967 season, only coming close in the following year. C tier is fitting for me, but feel free to let me know if I have zero wheel knowledge. It's also the 60s, man. Cut me some slack. Now for the final champion of the 1960s, Jackie Stewart. I think we keep this one pretty short considering most know this guy is awesome. He was such a clean racer. He was brilliant at managing his pace to win over time rather than win by like 3 minutes, but he was good at that too. This earned him the most wins by any driver during that time and is also, of course, a 3-time world champion. I think upper A is fitting for Sir Jackie. The 70s are next up, and to kick us off is the only posthumous world champion, Jochen Rindt. He is another what could have been driver since reports state that Rindt was such a naturally talented driver. He had blitzing pace and daring driving that rivals Max Verstappen. He was in the wrong decade, truly. Had he lived to see his own title come to fruition, who knows how many he could have had in the future. So I'm gonna trust the words of others and believe Rindt was simply him. So to upper B he goes, but maybe could have been an A or S had he lived. Anyways, next up is Emerson Fittipaldi, whose legacy is still very relevant today in his multiple children and grandchildren. Despite that cool detail though, Emerson is just fine. Okay, no, that is truly underselling it. Emerson Fittipaldi was a great driver with pace that never really died out. He would not only win in F1, but also IndyCar, including 2 Indy 500s. Not that they're counted here anyways. He was very consistent, and it's no wonder he became the youngest world champion at that time. By the way, what a rough 25. Emerson Fittipaldi is great at what he does, which is unfortunately little, but still good enough that I got him great results in the meanwhile. Upper B tier for you, Mr. Sideburns. Niki Lauda. I'm sure I could keep this short since the difficult question isn't where does Lauda rank, it's why wouldn't you rank him amongst the highest? Sure, maybe Niki wasn't this super duper fast driver with so much pace out of his ass, but he didn't need to be. The tactical driving and thinking he possessed in the race car was extraordinary. He used every possible factor that can go into a race to his advantage, and it's no wonder he won titles even all the way to 1984. Plus, he literally almost died in 76 and still could have won the title had he not valued his life over results in the final wet round, which is not a diss, by the way. Plus, the pace he did have was ridiculous, and I don't think the sport has seen as intelligent of a driver since. Easy S tier, man. Are you kidding me? Someone who was able to best him though was James Hunt in 1976, who yeah, I think we could be quick. James Hunt, for the most part in F1, was seen as let's say the old Romain Grosjean, a bloody quick driver with lots of potential to win races and perhaps a title. However, whoa boy, what shit racing standards. He was fast, no one denied that, but he just kept on crashing and getting into incidents that hamper his race. He just failed to do much often. However, he did reach his peak around 1975 and 76, where he used that clumsiness to his advantage and raced like a god in addition to his already quick pace. The 1976 title fight is the stuff of Hollywood, quite literally, and James Hunt came out on top. Of course, he was helped by Lauda pulling out in Japan and almost burning to death, but it was still a great season regardless. However, after 1976, Hunt just couldn't reach those levels again and retired shortly afterwards. I don't know, I hope I don't piss off the Youngs with this one, but I'd say a C tier champion is fitting. Had he raced past 1976 at the same or near same levels, he could have been higher, but it's just the fact that bro fell off the face of the earth that brings him down for me. A legend regardless though. Now for Mario Andretti, who is such a tough one to talk about. This is an F1 World Champion tier list, not an overall driver tier list, so like Surtees, we gotta disregard the other achievements. For those who don't know though, Mario Andretti is one of the most versatile drivers in history, having won on dirt, tarmac, endurance, it don't fucking matter, he has won it. Formula 1 is no exception, of course, with his championship win in 1978. He had been racing in F1 for a while and was always a bloody good driver on the grid. The stars would finally align with Lotus in 1978, where he won the season and more. No one contested him in that dominant ground effect Lotus car, and he raced it like it was a goddamn Honda Civic. Even after 1978, he continued to put up brilliant performances, even getting a pole position in 1982 at the age of 42. He was great, and if this was an overall driver tier list, easy S tier at least, but since it is strictly F1 only, his time in F1 for me warrants a high B tier. And finally, Jody Scheckter, the last Ferrari champion before Michael's reign in the 2000s. Surely he was good, right? Well, yes and no. Scheckter is really just James Hunt again. Both were extremely fast but reckless drivers who showed lots of potential, and then after realizing they can't be mid forever, they matured with the help of their team and used their recklessness as a boost to their skill, ironically. This shift helped them to win a title before falling off a cliff and retiring later. Unreliability or not, these guys still retired way too quick after their title, and it's hard to see how the title impacted their driving in future seasons. So just like James Hunt, C tier for Jody Scheckter, but again, I'm not an unk, so maybe they see something more than I do. Old ass. Now for the penultimate decade, the 1980s. To kick off the decade, we have Alan Jones, perhaps the most forgettable F1 champion ever. I don't even mean this negatively, it's just that most often forget him since many only remember Brabham when thinking about Australian F1 champions. Anyways, Jones was pretty good. He was the first driver to win Williams the title, and from about 1977 to 81, he would do amazing. He was ultra fast and such a races that he could stand toe-to-toe with many drivers, and even though he retired shortly after 1980, he was good for many years before then. However, Jones was never spectacular in something. Rather, he was just an overall balanced driver with some big balls. I'd say an upper C tier is in order. Now for Nelson Piquet, father-in-law to Max Verstappen. Boy, is that weird. Nelson Piquet is great. A common criticism you'll hear about him is how he wasn't daring. He always did the bare minimum and had results come his way because of that. Well, sure, maybe that's right, but in this era of super unreliable and unpredictable cars, it was more worthwhile to drive conservatively, since if you even dare push a car hard for a few laps, the thing could explode on you literally. I mean, 1,000+ horsepower engines in the 1980s is like giving a rocket ship to the Romans. It's too early for that. that. PK knew his car like no other driver knew theirs and always knew when to push and when to conserve, leading to his 3 titles. He also was able to fight with the other greats of the decade like Prost, Senna, and Mansell, which has got to stand for something. I'd give good old Nelson a low A tier for effort. Next up though is good old KK Rosberg, father of Nico Rosberg, who are both one-time champions. Is the government behind this? Now there are 2 explanations I could give about KK. One is that he was an ultra consistent driver who prioritized steady results over flashy results, leading to his 1982 title, or he was a great driver sure, but mainly benefited due to the extreme unreliability in the sport. I think it's a mix of both. KK was certainly fast and consistent, but also won that title thanks to extreme unreliability for his competitors, maybe the Checo Perez of his time. Either way, he was still great with a brilliant drive here and there. C tier for you, Mr. Mustache. Now, for 2 drivers who I'll speak about simultaneously, I'm sure you can guess who. Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. Both were the epitome of the different racing philosophies at that time, either slower and more calculated or too damn fast to slow down. Prost was essentially everything PK was, but better, smarter, faster, just better overall, leading to his 4 titles in 85, 86, 89, and 93. Senna, however, of course, was fast. I mean, with how much you hear about it, he may as well be the Jesus of F1. Even though Senna was ultra quick, he was still smart when it counted, leading to his 3 titles in 88, 90, and 91, and perhaps more had the Williams stint gone to plan. Both are S tier, and if you disagree, it better be because they deserve the GOAT tier, not anything lower. Finally, the 90s. Nigel Mansell in 1992 would finally win a title and be the first driver to talk about in this tier list. The better accomplishment, of course. Now, unless your name is James Not Applicable, Nigel Mansell is certainly no GOAT driver, but still, he could have been had things played differently. Mansell was this exceptionally fast driver. This guy's been kicking it with the legends of the 80s for a long while, but while they got their titles and their successes, Mansell always came in second. His racing philosophy was, I win or I crash, and you better hope you're not with me if the latter happens. This idea won him over 20 Grand Prix before his title, a win record of champions. But finally, in 1992, Williams built the single most dominant car F1 had seen at that time, and Mansell understood it's now or never. Win after win, Mansell truly left nothing on the table. He was a great driver before his title, even a great one afterwards, surprisingly considering his age. I think an A tier champion is fitting for me, but he easily could have been S tier had better luck found him earlier. Skipping over Michael due to him already being discussed in the first video, we now have Damon Hill, son of Graham Hill. Damon, unfortunately for him, would not be as good as his father, but he still had that factor. Damon was able to stand toe-to-toe with Michael Schumacher, which has got to stand for something, right? Along with just being this fast overall driver. 1996 was a highly contested season between the Williams pair of Hill and Villeneuve, where Damon came out on top. And that's about it. He had a short career where he always had a great race car under him. Sure, he raced for Jordan and Arrows GP after Williams, but it's not like he ever did anything. Yeah, he won Spa 1998, but like less than 10 drivers finished that race. Damon just didn't accomplish much outside of his time in a dominant Williams car, so yeah, C tier for him. His teammate at Williams, however, Jacques Villeneuve, would win the title in 1997, a year after Damon in his second season ever. Important context though, Jacques entered F1 with Williams as well, but he was an accomplished driver already with an Indy 500 and other accolades, so it's no surprise he was great immediately in F1, and in that dominant Williams car, 1997 was his. He did face a challenge from Michael Schumacher where he nearly got crashed out, but held on to win regardless in a great season. Wow, title in his second season. I bet the rest of his career will be just as awesome. He never won again. He never stood on the podium again, which, okay, sure, the cars he drove fell off, but so did he, man. His racing turned shit quick. So yeah, there's just not much else to add. Just a generational fall off. C tier for sure, unfortunately. And finally, Mika Hakkinen. Despite being a 2-time champion in 1998 and 99, to me, he is a light Kimi Räikkönen. Where Kimi was this ultra fast driver, Mika was super fast. Mika had been racing for a long time before 1998, 1991 to be specific, and he didn't win a single race until 97. So to come in and just start winning like it's no one else's business, boy, how did he only have 2 titles considering McLaren were good for a long time afterwards? He fucking quit, or went on sabbatical as he says it, but unless he comes back to F1 nearing his 60s, yeah, I think he quit. Because his peak literally lasted like 5 years only, I just can't rank him super high. I think a nice upper B tier is fitting for one fast driver, but also short-lived. So those are my thoughts on the rest of the champions. If you disagree with anything, take it up with my secretary at gofuckyourself69@hotmail.com. Anyways, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to all members of the flock for their continued support, and make sure to join if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you have a like and subscribe since it really helps me out. And make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this. And as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.